Choosing a history curriculum can feel overwhelming because here you are, you just decided you wanted to homeschool your children, and you kind of knew you could do English, you could do math, but all of a sudden you have to decide on history. And there are so many choices on the market, and you just feel exhausted just looking up, just doing a Google search. So in this video, we are going to look at Mystery of History versus Story of the World, two different curricula for history for your homeschool. And they're both excellent. They're both popular, but they represent two different philosophies, or if you will, two different approaches to history. So let's dive in. Story of the World, I've used it. It's behind me over here. You'll see the 4 little volumes that have the actual stories, and then the larger activity guides. We use them all. So you've got 4 different eras, and it's a great curriculum that we used, and we went through it twice when my oldest was in 1st grade. And then when he again started in 5th grade. So we went through the cycle twice. It is a story format. Obviously, the first word will tell you that, Story of the World. It's a story format which will give you an opportunity to read aloud to your children. So you read aloud. The activity guide will give you a list of supplemental reading that your children can do on their own, or you can read it to them. There will be fiction titles, nonfiction titles. It's chronological and it's engaging. It's really a good curriculum for literature families. Okay, we have some buzzwords like Charlotte Mason, like classical, like living books. It's almost like living books. It's lighter academically. That's what I can tell you from experience. You will go through this curriculum and almost not even feel like you're teaching history, which the advantage is not boring. The children will get stories, okay? But it will definitely be lighter as far as academics. When it comes to Mystery of History, there's a timeline, there's a structure. It's more structured, definitely more structured than Story of the World. You'll have more assignments, you'll have more depth. The subject matter will have more depth, and you will sense it because the kids will feel more challenged with more information and more volume. And it's probably better suited for older children compared to Story of the World. And you will require a little bit more preparation as you work with Mystery of History. So if you are to compare the two, I would say one is more about stories, the other one is more about structure. Okay, so even though Mystery of History was created for homeschool parents, it still feels like a traditional textbook approach to history. When trying to compare Mystery of History versus Story of the World, two very popular history curricula for homeschoolers, I have to tell you, I've never used Mystery of History, but I have used Story of the World. Once I committed to Story of the World, and we went through the stories, and we did the crafts, and we got the books from the library, the titles suggested on top of the daily reading, I didn't feel the need to switch. It worked for us. My children were younger, and that's where one of the main differences is. I think with Story of the World, you can get away with stories for younger children, and the younger kids in the room will feel good, for lack of a better word. It's just that when you present history to older children, they might feel um, still challenged, but at the same time engaged with the story. And when it comes to the little ones, they definitely need a story, right? So if you're doing history like most homeschool parents together, all ages together, then Story of the World will really definitely work even for preschoolers, because they can hear the story the way it's written, and there's not much emphasis on dates and memorizing locations. There are maps, definitely. You can do the map exercises. The little kids can color. There are crafts. There are things they can cut and paste. But if you're a literature family, if you're a read aloud family, Story of the World is definitely a great fit. Now, Mystery of History, I have not used, but it also has a lot of reading, a lot of read alouds. They suggest also a list of separate living books with stories that would follow along their curriculum. So, in terms of adapting it to a literature family, yeah, I can see it happening. It's just a matter of how structured do you want to be, how in depth do you want to go. If you're more of an in depth family, and if your children are older, I would definitely lean towards Mystery of History from what I've seen and from what I've heard others that I know who have used Mystery of History. When it comes to ages, like I said, I think Story of the World is better for the younger crowd. If you really wanted to use both of them, I would probably recommend Story of the World in the early grades and then Mystery of History in later grades. There are 4 volumes that go from ancient world into contemporary history. So it's very easy to assign one textbook per school year, and then in a 4-year cycle, you go through each curriculum. Now, um, if you're more of an academic family and you are more organized and you've got older children and you want to really study the dates in history, then I would go with Mystery of History. There's less supplementation. Susan Weiss Bauer, the author of Story of the World, gives you ideas for encyclopedias and different supplemental materials. But sometimes I found in my own experience, it's hard to reach for yet another book to show the kids yet another picture, And so if you can just have one book and you've got the pictures and you've got the maps and you got everything in there, then it's easier to handle Mystery of History that way. I would say, again, compare story versus structure for your own family, for your own rhythm, because the question is not which one is better. The question is which one fits us better. You've got a family that's more relaxed, that wants more reading, that's got a lot of little ones that need a story, then Story of the World. You've got older kids, you've got a need for a more structured academic approach to history, then Mystery of History is your bet. And as always, I invite you to look at the rest of the playlist where I compare different curricula for math and reading and writing and history. And definitely send me ideas for the next comparison video. Send me your comments. Tell me if you've used any of these. And if you need a bit more help deciding even what kind of learner is my child, there's a PDF in the description box where I sort of guide you through making decisions about what type of learner your child is so that you can choose the right curriculum.